I have a new all-consuming obsession, and that obsession is ball pit. I didn't set out to replace all my free time with grinding its roguelite take on Breakout, but its reliance on strategy with a butterfly kiss of luck and enticing upgrade paths both on and off the playfield grabbed a hold of the primal lizard parts of my brain to the detriment of all other civilized activity. I'm hooked. In fact, Ball Pit is the only video game I have played since I first started it a couple of weeks ago. I cannot break free from its satisfying loop of running a level and upgrading my balls, upgrading my city to unlock more balls, and then jumping right back in. It is a sickness with no cure. And honestly, I'm not even sure I'd want to be healed from the madness that has taken a hold of me. I've been recommending it to everyone, and so far those who've taken my advice inevitably reach out to tell me the same thing. You ruined my life, bro. You sicko. It is fantastic. Join us. We all bounce down here. At a distance, Ball Pit looks like one of those crappy games you see advertised on TikTok or Reels. You know the ones, "We're playing games the comments said were fake, part 17. Something along those lines. At first blush, it does look like some endless runner game trying to hook you with playtime gems or whatever predatory garbage is in vogue these days. But crucially, it is not one of those games at all. As it both respects your time and your efforts, it doles out satisfying upgrades in each level and then gives you the opportunity to build up more permanent powers in your home base. There's nothing cheap or underhanded about it. It makes you feel powerful, not cheated, and even with an element of RNG in each level, it requires you to make the most out of every opportunity rather than rely on dumb luck or random chance. When you beat a level, it feels like you earned it. The actual gameplay seems straightforward on the surface too. Your character or characters march up the playfield firing bouncing balls at wave after wave of enemies. The balls are weaponized, the enemies are crushed under the onslaught, and you eventually get to a given level's unique boss. That's a basic loop. The operative word here is basic. See that? Finger quotes. Because friends, Ball Pit is much more complex. For starters, there are different kinds of balls to fire. For example, your initial character, the warrior, starts with a special ball that imparts a bleed status effect that stacks up to cause extra damage on successive hits. As you defeat enemies, you'll also pick up gems in order to level up, which then gives you a choice of balls and other power-ups to use during that specific run. There are special balls with status effects or area of effect damage, balls that spawn more baby balls, weird, I know, and loads more. Then there are buffs, passive effects, defensive boosts, and even allies who'll join you in the march forward, dealing out damage or even health. Some of the power-ups are much better than the others. The Earthquake Ball, for example, deals damage around the enemy it hits, and like most area of effect balls, becomes incredibly powerful when fully upgraded. Others, like the Wretched Onion, kind of suck. What are you gonna do? Part of the fun is finding out which upgrades work best in any given level, as well as discovering what happens when you continue certain balls with fusions and evolutions that mix or modify their powers even further. Fusions can simply save you a slot by mashing two effects together to one single ball, but specific combos instead get the chance to evolve into a new power. For example, fusing the horizontal laser with the vertical laser creates my personal favorite, the Holy Laser. It shoots beams of pure fiery death vertically and horizontally while also dealing area of effect damage, which is as useful as much as it just rules. It's cool that fusing balls both scales the damage you're dealing and gives you the room to add even more. It is hard to keep track of all the possibilities, but there is an in-game encyclopedia that shows you the combos you've unlocked. I'm more than 30 hours in, and I still have fusions I haven't found yet, which I find pretty damn exciting. The laser balls in any configuration do a crap ton of damage, searing rows and columns, sometimes adding stackable status effects like radiation, while also doing normal hot laser damage. When you are fully powered up and the RNG gods have held you in their favor, it is a beautiful bloodbath. Lasers and explosions and effects are going off constantly, and the damage counters fill the screen as entire rows of enemies evaporate into experience gems and gold you'll spend back in your town between runs. The town is the other half of Ball Pit, one that is enormously important to growing your characters. In addition to earning permanent stat boosts just by playing as them, constructing certain buildings and character houses will provide buffs and bonuses as well, which you are absolutely going to need in order to make it through the later levels. But while it is very important, the city building part of Ball Pit is extremely clunky. In fact, it's probably the worst part of what I think is otherwise a flawless game. After you complete a level, whether or not you did so successfully, you're thrown back into the town interface where you'll build structures from blueprints you gathered out in the field. You also build resource tiles, forests for wood, fields for wheat, and rocks for rocks, obviously. These resources, in addition to gold, are required to build and upgrade new structures. Thankfully, there are plenty of ways to gather resources outside of just harvesting, including during level runs and with passive buildings like the stone quarry, but collecting it manually is the most fun, obviously. In the harvest phase, you use your unlocked characters as balls, taking aim from the bottom of the board and then letting them rip Beyblade style in the direction of the stuff you want to hit. Then they bounce off the walls and buildings, collecting resources from the resource tiles and upgrading any buildings you mark for improvement. The process is amusing, but also fairly tedious, as you can move buildings around before you harvest in order to optimize their placement, but there really isn't a convenient way to do so. What I usually end up doing is moving everything off to one side of the map and then shuffling all the parts and pieces back again to where I want them at that specific moment. It almost seems like Ball Pit is aware of how cumbersome the city building is because there's no penalty or resource cost for moving tiles around. What I would love to see is some kind of option to wipe the slate clean without needing to go through and manually remove every building, or maybe, I don't know, a holding pen where I could drop structures temporarily while I reconfigure my layout. And you will be reconfiguring your layout a lot. Building upgrades require your characters to bounce off the buildings multiple times. And if that building is in a weird location, hey buddy, good luck getting the trajectory right to consistently hit it enough times during the harvest phase without reorganizing half the town. I often ended up moving relevant buildings down near the launch area, which meant moving all the other stuff away and then reorganizing it again after all was said and done. I don't like it at all. It is such a bummer because you can't really ignore this, as city layout is extremely important to how powerful you are in the levels themselves. Some buildings provide buffs that make the effects of other nearby buildings stronger, so their placement is crucial to your continued success. That need for careful planning is at odds with the reality of constantly shuffling tiles around when it comes time to harvest, build, and upgrade. However, building specific issues aside, I do really like how your town structures contribute directly to the action itself. The better your city, the better your characters. And the more blueprints you find, the more options you have when it comes to a new run. It may be cumbersome to move everything around, but the results are meaningful and can sometimes be surprising in a way that is ultimately a positive. Somewhat early on, you unlock a building that lets you bring 2 characters into battle instead of just one, adding another layer of complexity and experimentation to each run. At first, it almost feels like cheating, but it would be functionally impossible to get much further without it. I am still figuring out which combinations work well and which ones are total crap. Since you still gain golden experience even on a failed run, I don't really mind when I pick a total dud combo because I've still made some progress. There have also been several times where I thought I'd figured it out, some god tier combo, only to get 3/4 of the way through a level and realize, oh my god, I have made a terrible mistake. The worst was when I paired the warrior with the flagellant for a new game plus run of the first level. Balls shot by the flagellant bounce off the bottom of the screen instead of the top, and the warrior has no special attributes other than being your starting character. The first level boss, the Skeleton King, requires you to hit the back of its skull to inflict damage. Now, the RNG gods had graced me with some decent fusions, but all of them ended up bouncing harmlessly between his 2 arms out front, leaving me almost completely ineffective. An errant baby ball would sometimes bank off the wall to register a tiny, I'm talking a tiny amount of damage, but I ended up losing on purpose just to back out of the level. As frustrating as that was, it's emblematic of something I actually love about Ball Pit. It requires strategy in almost every facet. The balls and upgrades offered to you are at the mercy of RNG, sure, but you also have the choice of which ones to use and which ones to fuse and evolve. I was also able to identify good combinations and bad combinations of characters based on their attributes and would make mental notes, file it away up here, about which pairings would work out for my specific needs as I push through each level. The juggler, for example, throws balls over enemies, and pairing him with the shade, whose balls shoot from the back of the field, got me through some tough times. Following a heavy AoE upgrade path allowed me to clear out basically any row of enemies on the board while still getting a ton of damage from the balls bouncing in the back. That combination of strategy and knowing how to best upgrade my character combination for a specific level is what keeps me coming back over and over and over again until I'm bleary-eyed and tired and sweaty a little bit. When everything aligns and you're wiping out entire fields of enemies, when the screen is absolutely filled with lasers and explosions and baby balls scattering in every direction, you feel an enormous sense of power. From an outside view, honing in your upgrades combined with the careful building placement and frequent stat leveling from buff buildings makes it seem like Ball Pit would feel easier over time, but it does a rare and beautiful thing. Instead of ending up feeling easy, you end up feeling powerful. When I finally did beat the main story and watched the credits around the 20-hour mark, I immediately started up New Game Plus. I never do that, but the entirely inconsequential story is just a small part of Ball Pit for me. The real joy here comes in building up your powers and combos and seeing what delights will unlock themselves during the course of a run. I play for moments when the music is nearly drowned out by the sounds of explosions and laser blasts, or when I get a gold bonus for clearing the field of enemies, and then I do it again, and then I do it again, and then I do it like 5 more times in a given level. Oh my God, it scratches an itch deep inside my lizard brain. Hard work pays off, but the right combinations of upgrades mixed with a touch of luck pays off even more. Ball Pit is my favorite game of 2025, there I said it. Even with a clunky city building phase you can't afford to ignore, the actual action of its Breakout-inspired runs is enormously fun. I get stuck in a just one more run mindset every time I sit down to play what I swear is gonna be a quick round or two. I'll be right out. Its strategies run surprisingly deep for a simple brick breaker, rewarding smart planning and forethought more so than RNG and luck alone. It is a rare game that I'm still excited to play well after I beat the main story. And in a lot of ways, I wish I were playing it right now. If you want your life to be completely upended by a seemingly simple brick-breaking roguelike, I cannot recommend it enough. Hey, for more roguelite reviews, check out our review of Hades 2. And for everything else, keep it right here on IGN. That rhymed.